which...
Huh.
Yeah, my host goes fine.
Huh. Weird.
That is, I've never seen
Whatever. We'll just hide it. I have demo mode anyway.
Okay. So, looks like we're at maximum bit rate, maximum FPS. I think that we are streaming right now live on YouTube.
Is your window a little off the screen?
Yes.
Alright, cool. The screen size is right.
Now it's actually on the screen.
So we're supposed to download some
Ooh,
stuff
it
from
still
your
clips
GitHub
just a
site?
little bit.
Yeah, I think there's
I wonder if we can fix
you
that.
have an overscan mode
Yeah.
so that you don't see the little stuff when you're watching old
Old
media. Used to
Yeah,
have
which nobody
There's
actually
jacks up
watches
for all of our
anymore.
new stuff. Oh, trash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they
I thought there was
encoded,
something
like,
you could
the
do for overscanning here, but
closed
it's not.
caption or something at the top line.
Alright, so I'll try to keep stuff inside a little bit. Okie dokie. We ready to start then?
I think that we are ready to start. We're streaming on the YouTubes. We've got audio. Check is looking all right. Does anybody want to just do a quick test for me? Go to youtube.com/coolaj86. That's where I'm publishing this to, because I did not take the time to get the stream key set up for the Rust channel yet.
There's
46,
no one
you
else
say?
in the chat.
86.
86.
Yeah, like 1986. Cool AJ 86.
Looks cool.
Yeah, so you should see it and you should hear it if you turn on audio for a second. Just tell me that we can hear his audio, and then we'll just go ahead and get started. AJ 86.
Looks cool.
Yeah, so you should see it.
Is it showing my picture from this thing?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Wow, cool. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Okay, should we start for realsies?
Yeah, let's start for real. So I'll go ahead and do the intro.
You want the hot
real
seat?
quick. Yeah, I don't know if I can get over there.
Okay.
So we'll just look at your pretty face and I'll do the intro.
AJ is talking behind the camera.
That's right. So welcome everybody to Utah Rust. Glad to have you here. Glad to have a new location. Looking forward to growing and having higher quality meetups now that we have the ability to. We have tonight Nathan Stocks, who's going to be going over the Rusty engine, which is a game engine that he's developed for teaching and learning Rust. And for all of those of you on YouTube, if at any point you have one of those aha moments where something clicks for you and you feel like, yeah, this was valuable, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the Utah Rust channel, which is not where this is live streaming, but I'll put a link in the doobly-doo to that. And with that all said, I will turn it over to Nathan.
Alrighty. Okay, so today's all about using Rusty Engine to make some little game prototypes. So we're just going to have some fun. The target audience for this is medium level. So if you don't know Rust at all, you're going to suffer. If you're just a beginner, you're going to have a little bit of a difficult time. But if you're just, a little bit past beginner, that's sort of the sweet spot for this. I've got two Rust courses that I teach. The first one's called Ultimate Rust Crash Course. It's on Udemy. I'm happy to give out free links to people in the user group for it if you want to take it. I've got a second course which I've given live on O'Reilly. It's going to be published soon on Udemy under Ultimate Rust 2, and that's sort of the more medium, intermediate level stuff. And I built this engine for that second course. It's specifically designed so that everything that you go over in those first two courses to get you up and running with Rust, you'll use with this engine, and hopefully no more than that. So it under the hood, it's just Bevy. So if you want a real game engine, then go use Bevy. I'd be happy to give a presentation on that in some future months if AJ needs a presenter. That would be for a more advanced, hey, let's learn actual game engine concepts and use some more hefty Rust. But Rusty Engine is specifically for my courses. So I wrap Bevy, I give up a bunch of performance in favor of simplicity. Not necessarily the best design, because it's not, but it's simple. The concepts that you use are simple, Rust-wise. So, with that said, let's go start using Rusty Engine. So, I'm going to sort of have three phases tonight. The first phase is I'm just going to sort of like intro you to specific features. And the second phase is I'll sort of walk through one of my scenarios that I've already built, just sort of walk through line by line, explaining how I put it together and how it works. And then the third phase is people build stuff. So you could follow some of my other scenarios, or you could just do your own thing or whatever, and then I'll just sort of like helps people. So I apologize to people online. I mean, if you're online now, then great, I can help answer your questions and stuff. But if you're watching this online later, the third phase is probably going to be pretty boring because I'm going to be out and around with you guys. Okay, so let's get started. So Rusty engine. So if we just go over to terminal and make a new project, I don't know, the game. Maybe if I spell cargo with an O, it would probably work better. All right, go into the game. Alrighty, so I'll put this in presentation mode. That'll probably be pretty readable. Okay, so the first thing we do is just we go in and say Rusty engine equals, we're going to use version 2.
So you published this crate.
What's what?
This is a crate that you published?
This is a crate that I published. Although Better Tom was like yelling about it. What's that all about? Actually, it's even Better Tom.
These bumps to 2.0.0.
Let's see. Look at my Rust. Did I not put my badges up yet? Guess not.
What was the password? It was Rockstar, capital R, capital S.
Make sure my Rusty engine. I actually published version 2 earlier today, so yeah, it's there. It's on crates.io. I don't know why
It doesn't seem to be complaining for me.
probably just need to do one of these. Reload. Be happy.
Look at that.
Ta-da!
Yay!
The solution for most VS Code things, right? Just reload again. All right, so we got a game, edition 2018. By the way, Rust 2021 is coming out next month. Super cool. All right, so as we have, what did I do? There we go. As we have here on the website, we've got this little quick start, like do this, do this, do this, and that's what we're going to start with. So the first thing you want to do is just import everything from the prelude. Right? As we all know, the prelude is where you put stuff that you want your library users to use. Like you're always going to use this. Well, I put everything in there because it's a very tiny library. You're always going to use the stuff. So use Rusty engine, prelude, all the stuff. One of the 3 times that it's okay to use a star and use. Hey, by the way, I've got GitHub's Copilot plugin turned on, so that's pretty close, but not quite. So we want to make a game, which is going to be, that's pretty close, but not quite. We just game new. So we need to make a game, and then we are going to do, now that's pretty dang good. That's pretty close too. We want to do game run, and we're going to run like our game logic function. And our game logic function needs to have a specific fingerprint, I guess, signature. There you go. And wow, close, but not quite there. I think I'm just going to turn off Copilot because me constantly stopping to examine it is, let's see, I guess I have to get out of presentation mode to find the little thingy. Just turn it off. And go back in. Because that's not going to be useful for everybody. Okay, so game logic. And what we need is we need a game state, which is a mutable reference to a game state. And that's it. Doesn't return anything. That is the signature. And so the basic pattern for this engine is you do your setup right here with game, and then this game logic function is called once each frame. So every frame, you look at all the stuff, you touch all the stuff that you want to, and when you run off the end of this function, then it's all synced over to the real game engine and stuff happens, and then another frame comes. So that's the basic pattern. So Since I was wrapping Bevy and simplifying it, I reintroduced the concept of an actor, which is something that game engines like Unreal have. It's not really an ECS concept, but it makes it easier to like conceptualize. So let's make our player or whatever be. Okay, in our game object, we need to get access to that game state. So I have this game state mute function that returns a mutable reference to the whole game state. That's the same thing you'll get each frame. So out here, you have to go through your game object to get it, but in here, you just have it as your parameter. And then we can do things like add an actor. Every actor has a unique label, so I'll just call this one player. And then so far, you can only access presets. So there's a bunch of actor presets, and they're literally called actor preset, and then there's this list of actor presets. So I've got two sort of groups of actors. There's a racing group and a rolling game group. So let's just go with the racing car. What color should we do? Black, blue, green, or red, or yellow?
Blue.
Blue. Okay, racing car blue. And that is enough for us to actually run and see something non-trivial. So this again also. This is a game, so you want to run it in release mode because it will be noticeably more performant. Especially like the sound loading, it'll take like 5 seconds to parse and load a song in debug mode, but in release mode it's just a few milliseconds. Huge, huge difference. So always run in release mode tonight. Let that go. So what this is going to be is it's going to be this actor preset, this racing car blue, and it's going to have all default values on a default window. And while this is going, let's go do something else because this is going to take for freaking ever. It's closely related to actors. There are text actors. So let's go game state mute, add text actor. Similar to the other actors, they have a label, so I don't know, my message or whatever, and then just some text to actually see. So, I don't know, score or something. Whatever you want to use text in the game for. Alright, and I'll save that. And since we saved that before it got to our actual game, it's probably going to have that in it. So let's keep going. Let's see, what else can we do? There's a bunch of, like, you can customize the window, but that's sort of boring. Like, you can take off the title, or you can set the title. You can change the default size that it starts at, or whether or not you can resize it and stuff like that. If you want to do any of that, go into Rusty Engine's. Find Rusty Engine. Rusty Engine itself, the repo, has an example subdirectory, and there's an example of every concept. So we just went through basically actor. Is there an actor? No, we went through sprite. I should change that to actor because I originally had sprites, but then I put them inside of actors. And then window has all the stuff about customizing your window, stuff like that. So that's good reference. I tried to document everything. I'm not sure I found everything and documented it all yet, but I tried to do a decent job of that. Let's go back to this. Actually, probably shouldn't do presentation mode because we're going to be going back and forth between launching the game, so maybe I'll just go like that. Is that readable enough? Is that... Okay, so, oh yes, I skipped a step. So you see these errors out here about not having any assets. That's because I haven't found a way to ship the asset with the assets with the library. There's like a 10 megabyte limit on what crates.io will have, so pretty much code only. So you have to go get your assets separately. There's 3 different ways here. I'm just going to do the nice curl way. So if I come back to my project, download the assets to my project, run it again. Okay, So now we have the text and the car are both in their default position of 0, 0, right on top of each other. So let's go fix that.
0, 0 in the middle, not.
So 0, 0 is in the middle. So the coordinates in this game engine are like your math coordinates, where y goes positive up and x goes positive to the right. I guess we don't know up and right. So it's just like math class coordinates. And there's only one coordinate system. I took Bevy's different coordinate systems and I translated them all to that same coordinate system for everything you do. So in Rusty Engine, it's all one coordinate system, and it's all 2D. Bevy itself is a 3D game engine. So it's got things like screen coordinates for your mouse input, and then it's got 3D coordinates for the main game and stuff. All right, so moving stuff. So this actually returns a why is it like warning about stuff? This returns a mutable reference to an actor, which is why I assigned this player thing here. So before we get our game running, we can actually position it where we want. So we can do things like player.translation. There's a thing called a vec2. All of your 2D coordinates are going to be a vec2, and they're just going to take f32s. So let's say negative 200, 200. That should take it left and up. All right.
So in your coordinate system, 0, 0 is where?
In the center. Okay, so I went off of 0, 0, negative 200, and up 200. Right? So there's translation, there is rotation, which is just an F32. It's in radians. So 0 is facing right, then you'll go to 0 is facing right, and then as you go up to pi, which is that's 180 degrees around, and then 2 pi is all the way around. So if we say like,
So 3.14 is 180 degrees.
correct.
Okay. Well, approximately.
Right, and if you want to use fractions of pi, there's built-in standard F32 consts, and then there's all these constants that have to do with pi and tau, which is 2 pi, right? So if I go like pi fourths, around again, should be like, yeah, that. Ta-da!
Why radians rather than degrees?
Because that's what Bevy uses.
Oh, okay.
Is that true? Well, they use quaternions, and it was easiest for me to plug the radians into the quaternion to turn it.
Well, the quaternions. That's okay.
Yeah,
What has to do with
that's one of the real game
Yes.
engine concepts, and quaternions they're fancy.
They use it to fix the gimbal lock.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which is like a whole 10-minute discussion in and of
Yeah.
itself. So we're gonna skip it.
I couldn't give that discussion. Just know that that's the content.
There's also a scale which defaults to 1.0. So if we set it to 5.0, you're gonna be bigger. Boom.
That's big.
Okay. Now, this is like setup. We can do whatever we want on setup, but we can also affect all of those things every frame. So if we wanted to, for example, we could say, okay, game state. Now let's get an actor. So there's this actors vector, or actually it's a hash map. That's why we have those labels. And I'll say I want to get a mutable reference, and my key is, what did I name the player?
Layer.
Player. Sensible label, isn't it? Okay, so that will be well, and it might not be there, but I know it's there because I hard-coded it to be up there in the start. So I'm just going to unwrap it. Right, now I've got a mutable reference to it. So in here I could say player dot scale plus equals, I don't know, 0.05 or something. So every frame it'll just add to the scale. Whee! Now you start to see, okay, the game. Set up, do stuff in a frame, right? So let's see, what other stuff could we do?
At what frame rate is this?
My monitor goes at 60, most of yours do too, unless you've got a gaming laptop.
Okay, so the engine is
it's locked to the frame rate?
I set it to VSync, so it should lock to a fraction of your frame rate. It'll try to go to the full frame rate if it can. If it can't, it should go down to some fraction. You can use the window settings to turn off VSync if you'd rather it have screen tearing.
Yeah, I like that. When I'm trying to explain to somebody what a ocular migraine is like, it's really helpful.
All right, so let's see. Now let's look at some input. Right, because if you can't handle input, you don't have a game, right? You just have a simulation. So instead of like, well, it doesn't matter how it starts. Let's make it so we can rotate our player, right? So if our game state, should we rotate it with the keyboard or the mouse? Keyboard state. Okay, it's got these different methods. So we're going to look for is something currently pressed. Actually, let's do multiple things. Pressed any. So there's a method that just looks for a single key. Okay, well, let's do the single key one. Pressed, a single key. So it's called key code. I grabbed this straight out of Bevy. I still have on my to-do list to wrap all of the Bevy things so that like half of the things that you interact with right now are straight out of Bevy. And so if you want the documentation, you have to go find it over in Bevy. And then the other half is like I made it. I need to wrap them all so that all the documentation is here and it's a little bit more contained and maybe doesn't expose quite so much stuff that maybe you're not going to use with a little toy game engine. But anyway, key code, rotate left. How about left? So, yeah, that's the left arrow. Okay, left arrow, then got to get, oh, look, we already got access to our player, right? So, player dot rotation plus equals. So the way that you want to handle this, there are better ways, but in this toy game engine, we're just going to multiply our values by our delta frame rate. So by the time the last frame took. So let's say we want to rotate 5 radians per second. We're just going to multiply that by game state delta F32. So every time you come around this frame, it's going to tell you how long the last frame took, so you can estimate like how fast you're going. And so 5 radians per second multiplied by number of seconds gives you the amount of radians you need to turn this frame. All right. So let's give it a try. Put it down there. Let's see it. Okay, left. Okay, so obviously it'd be nice if we could do right as well. So, oh gosh dang it, stupid hover. Let's do the same thing for right. Only this time, let's subtract. And I accidentally made that full screen. See, I should be hiding this sidebar, so it's not in the way. Sorry about that. Okay, so cargo run.
If you don't update the key, it does not. In case you didn't know.
If you don't update the key,
I'm using A to turn left, and to turn right, I kept it at A. So.
Correct. Right. If you add some when you do left and you subtract some when you do left, then it's going to come back down to 0.
Yeah.
Just pull select.
Oh gosh, I typed cargo run, didn't I? My bad. I'm like, why is this taking so long? Because I hadn't compiled my debug stuff. Okay, left, right, left, right. The beginnings of the game, right? We also want to put that score up in the top right so I can go up here. What's that?
Can you accelerate?
Sure can. Just a second. That's just math, though. If you want to see an example of that, I actually have that in the Extreme Drivers Ed reference scenario. Okay, so let's see. Message, not with the caps lock. Translation. Back to new. I should just like turn off some of the hovers and things. Huh? Back to new. Where should I put it? Top right, maybe. So there's actually a game state. What's it called? Screen dimensions. Screen dimensions, and I would want to divide them by half. And that would give me the top right, sort of. It'll be a little off the top right, so I'll probably need to subtract a little bit. Oh. Can't divide a vec2 by 2? That stinks. Well, we could like put in all this. Oh, I put it in the new. That is a vec2 already. So actually, that's the problem. True problem. Can't borrow them again. Dang. This is the drawback to sticking everything in like a big Uber object, is you have to deal with the ownership stuff all the time. So when you run into that in this game, when in doubt, clone. So let screen dimensions equals. Vec2 is already a copy type, so that should actually just clone it. Screen dimensions. Run. And it totally did not work. What did I do wrong? I don't know. Let's punt. Back to put it up on the right somewhere. 400 over and 300 up. Something like that.
Now, where did you define the screen size?
Oh, there's a built-in default screen size.
Well, apparently.
I think it's 1024 by 768 or something. So it's there. It's upish, rightish, maybe a little bit more rightish. Okay, so let's go through some other features. Let's see. We did keyboard. Let's go through some sound. How about that?
Wait, I've got a question before
Yeah.
you move forward. This is something I meant to ask earlier. Can you show more of the code, Liquid?
More of which code?
This is the code. Just, their screen had lots of other stuff. Anyway, so you've got a player, but you never attach the player to the game with player equals
it's right
game,
here.
Game, you add actor. Okay, so
Which is
when you add
mutating
actor,
this
you get the
game state.
reference.
It's mutating the game state. It's actually creating the actor and putting it into the game state.
Okay.
There's only one big Uber game state, and everything is dealing with it. And then behind the scenes, I'm taking stuff from the game state and actually plugging it into Bevy to have Bevy do all the actual hard game engine work.
And in your game logic function, how do you access the actor again, the player actor? Yeah, okay.
Let's see, right there.
Now, since the
Through
game
the
didn't
actors
end
right
yet, and player didn't drop out, and it's a mutable instance, how is it that you're able to also get another mutable instance of the player in this function while that player hasn't dropped out of scope yet?
Okay, so this player is a mutable reference.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And then in your game logic function, right, it's still, the scope of main is still running once you go down. I think that's what your question is?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I suspect it's non-lexical lifetimes. So if after game run you
Yep.
You
I think you're
referenced
right.
it again, even though it's not going to exit, I
Yeah.
suspect it would complete.
That should probably break it. But because of non-lexical lifetimes, at this point, it's like, oh, you're never going to use it again, so I can drop that mutable reference so that other things can have their fun. Yeah, before Rust, like, what was that, like 1.40 something?
I don't
This
know
would have
exactly
been like
what.
super, super duper hard. Yeah, fun question.
But that's like the whole of Rust. Oh, before this version is really hard. It's still hard, but it's hard.
Yeah, at some point, like
Still hard.
what's hard now is you can't borrow. Like there are some things that you try to call on game state that want to borrow the whole game state. So if you've borrowed a mutable reference to an actor inside of the actor's vector, but then you call one of the methods that wants the whole game state, it won't let you.
Yeah.
So it's like, ugh.
That's something they're fixing in this upcoming release, right?
Yeah. If you specifically access different fields,
Yeah, you can.
then it works right now. You can borrow.
You can borrow fields of a struct without borrowing the whole thing.
Exactly.
But if you call a method on something,
Mhm.
the reference to the whole struct gets
Yeah.
passed in instead of just the field that you're calling the method
Mhm.
on.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll have to battle with it a lot.
Out of curiosity, what's your backing structure for actors?
What do you mean?
Like, is it a hash map or some kind of vector?
What is the actor?
Game
Well,
state
you're
dot
getting
actors.
them moved.
Oh, what is actors? Actors is a
Yeah.
hash map.
Oh, okay, sweet.
So it's a label string and an actor
Sweet.
thing. Ignore random state. That's something to do with the fact that I'm using Bevy's hash map.
Something to do with random state,
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. We were going to do some sounds. So should we make that based off of a key code again, or a mouse click or something?
When the car gets to a location.
You want to be a location? We can do that. If player dot translation dot x.
Do the scores location.
Wait, we can't move our car yet.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, we
only
need to-
turn.
You can only rotate.
We can only rotate.
We can't drive.
Well, rotation dot cosine is bigger than 0.5. No, because then it'll keep triggering this every frame where it's at that.
Yeah, that'd be brutal.
That's really brutal. Like that's a lot of sound to deal. Let's just do a key press right now.
Just copy and paste your rotation and then do it translation instead, so we can move the car, right?
You want to make it so we can move the car first? We can do that.
Well, I
Alright.
guess we have to multiply it by the angle that it's at, but it's okay.
Do you want? I can go copy the movement code out of the Extreme Driver's Ed if you want. Skip forward a little bit.
Let's move it.
All right.
Let's move it.
Extreme Driver's
Car
Ed.
needs to move.
Car needs to move.
All right.
Automobile.
Do.
Thousand lines on it.
No, actually, it's just. Gosh, that scroll is like super
I
quick.
mean, just the file.
Keyboard for the win.
You got
Yeah.
It's just that.
It is
Of course, it's not the most
I bet.
complicated
Play with-
movement code either.
I assume it's the same thing as in C-line then. Yes.
Okay,
Like the
so that's real similar. And look, it's even player.
Oh no, it's an IntelliJ.
Put that up there. Okay. So in here I did a use keycode star, so I didn't have to type keycode over and over and over. I used pressed any so I could do multiple different keys. So WASD and the arrow keys, and I also made it work for the same analogous WASD only on Dvorak.
Legend.
Ta-da! Anyway, okay, so now we got to get that
That's right, for the
velocity out
legends
there.
out there.
I give you credit. for
Accessibility, you know.
And then we want Extreme Driver's Ed. Got to get my velocity initialization for the player.
I noticed he didn't do it for Colmac though, so.
No, I've never used Colomac. I just don't have a Colomac keyboard. I've got hardware Dvorak here.
Huh.
All right,
So you
let's see.
can plug that in and program it to be whatever. keyboard.
Yeah, it's actually telling him the QWERTY. Just it's like he thinks it's a QWERTY keyboard,
Yeah.
but I have a hardware Dvorak. Mhm.
Is it faster?
Yeah,
I
but
noticed you have
it's
a
less
DSL.
painful is the
Do
big
you
thing.
play games?
Yes.
With
With Dvorak,
with the keyboard.
I mostly only do StarCraft and FTL with Dvorak because I remapped everything
I was
else.
like, man, I'm imagining remapping.
Yeah, that's gonna say
StarCraft 2
remapping
bindings right
everything.
now.
If I go to everything else, StarCraft 2 is easy because it's just, you make your grid layout for Dvorak. You just have to type it all
I
in
don't
once.
use grid, right? So.
So I do everything grid layout in StarCraft.
Oh.
And then FTL is a tiny little game, so who cares? Everything else I just switched to QWERTY. Let's see. So I set up this velocity here, and
Which
then
file did you lift this code from? In the...
the extreme drivers ed inside of the scenarios subdirectory of examples.
Okay.
Examples, scenarios, extreme drivers ed.
Because we went hardcore right at the start.
Boom. All right. So there. We save. So what this does is it saves this persistent velocity in a empty vector2 hash map. I should go over game
So you
state
can
a little
reference
bit.
it again.
There's a bunch of empty stuff you can just stick stuff in and get stuff back out because you want to keep it between frames, right? So I want to keep my velocity between frames.
Yep.
And then all this is doing is saying, okay, I got this acceleration input and this rotation input, and the input will either be 0, 1.0, or negative 1.0. And then down here, I just do the math. Got to set some constants too. I just do the math to turn me and keep me moving forward at a velocity in whatever direction forward is. And it's not too hard. This is how you change your angle into the coordinates for the new velocity. It's the same thing as getting the coordinates for a circle. If you just keep changing the angle and plugging in over and over, it's the same math. Just the magnitude times the cosine or sine for the x's and y's. But we do need to decide how fast are we going to accelerate and how fast are we going to turn. So we need to go set those constants. Turn rate, this is in radians per second. We were doing 5.0 before,
Yeah, we're doing
right?
5.0, so.
And then the acceleration rate is in pixels per second.
Oh.
5?
That's really slow.
They're really slow. 50 is probably going to be slow. Let's go try it though. Let's see if I've got enough there for this to run.
He's accelerating though. Yeah.
And
He's
it's
cooking,
working.
he's cooking.
It is not the most advanced car control, but and then you can when we got slow down at the same rate.
Try the shift as a drift.
It doesn't yet. But let's boost up that acceleration a bit, huh?
Oh, nice one, cooking.
This guy can
So it's
just
500 pixels per second.
correct.
Holy smokes.
Oh,
Oh,
you can
man.
go off screen?
Oh yeah, because we didn't program anything to say he couldn't.
That's
Yes,
kinda
that's true.
cool.
So just off he goes, right?
Will eventually wrap around.
If you make it wrap around, you're the
Alright.
game designer.
Now we gotta do our sound when we hit the score.
No, you
That was the whole point we did this one.
You gotta make a way to make it bounce off the walls.
You could do that,
So
but
it feels really unnatural for the car to pivot around its center as it turns.
Oh,
yeah, there's
gosh.
okay. We're not going to spend 15 minutes designing the input controller in this
15
phase.
minutes, that's it? You're fast, man.
15 days.
Well, my question,
It would take me a little longer.
It's an
15
all-wheel
minutes.
drive and steer vehicle.
Okay, we are demonstrating features. Let's see.
my question was more like,
Sound.
if I want to
Sound.
think through that problem, what is it that would, could I translate the rotation, or would I have to just change the movement to account for that?
Could you translate the rotation? Okay, so in this engine, the pivot point is in the center of the actor, and that's the only thing you can rotate. So for you to get more advanced in your turning, we would need new engine features to be able to move your pivot point.
Or you could make your sprite longer and have a bunch of transparent at the top.
I like
And then
the
make
way
whatever
he's thinking
collision
about this.
stuff you do.
Quick hacks. You must write JavaScript like
All right. Oh, burn. All right, I'm gonna look
By the
at.
way, we also have chips and thingies today.
Yep.
Okay, so if you press the space bar, I'm gonna play a sound effect.
These are pretty good. I've never heard of them before, but they're awesome.
So in the game state, there is an audio manager, and the audio manager has such things as play sound effects.
30 years ago, yeah, we changed.
And then there are sound effects presets, because all the batteries are included. And
Are
so
these statically included in the binary? Those-
you have to download the assets, but the code for them is all statically included. Oh yeah. Oh, you're asking once you do it.
Yeah, once you
No.
already ha- Okay, so then
No.
you have to.
Right now they have to be like if you compile your binary, you have to like make sure that your assets are there relative to the working directory that you are using when you launch the binary.
Is there something like Go bin data / VFS gen where it's super easy to just generate the code that includes
That includes.
the assets?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was looking at crates for that, and it's not as built out. Or at least 2 months ago.
Yeah, if Bevy makes the feature, I may expose it.
Okay.
Because not building the resources in the executable software.
What should we do here? Why don't we play a jingle?
Even to like look at it as like a virtual file system.
In what
It
you said
does.
it's easy?
And Go.
So,
Yeah, in 1.16 they finally included virtual file system support.
Is that your horn?
Yep. Guess. Hong Kong.
Sounds like the
Wait,
Addams
what did
family.
you do? There's a space bar.
Okay,
Good.
yeah. If you press
I
space,
just honk.
I go through the audio manager, play a sound effect. Now, sound effects are fire and forget. They play once, they get cleaned up. Right, there is also music. We want to do that just once up in main.
So you can put nitros on
Can you
the
adjust the
sucker and
volume
make it look
from here?
transparent.
You can choose a volume.
For
You
that,
can't
for
change
that-
the volume.
For that sound though?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Or we could,
But you could
Yeah,
make
yeah.
a pull
I'll
request
make a
and
pull
contribute
request,
the feature to
absolutely.
Rusty Engine. I'm totally okay with like doing all sorts of interesting stuff, but like if you want it, you might have to make it because I focus on like the narrow thing that I do in class.
You know?
Like we're using these features, so I built these features.
So, when you're playing the sound effects, I assume it's happening over multiple frames.
Uh-huh.
Right, but I don't see like a state to manage it, so can you cancel? Or is that being implicitly built in game state?
I have not exposed any way to cancel it. I'm
So if you hit it
using
again, it would start another?
I'm
Or-
using a Bevy plugin to use the Kira audio engine. And the Kira audio engine has tons of features, and the Bevy plugin exposes some of them, and then I expose almost none of them.
So if you hit the spacebar twice, really
Play.
fast, what happens?
What's that?
Spacebar twice, really fast.
It'll play two overlapping
It will play.
sounds.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so you can have...
wait, how does it debounce then? 'Cause
It doesn't debounce.
it doesn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's another
I
feature
used
getting exposed.
just pressed, so that only when you initially press,
So on key down.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
If I did
Cool.
pressed, then you would have to debounce it because every frame where you still had it held down before you let up, it would
It would
start a new one.
start a new
Brrr.
one.
That sounds
Okay,
tricky.
got it.
But
Yeah.
just press debounces it.
Yes.
That makes sense.
That's a
Cool.
weird thing to call.
That's what Bevy
I
calls it.
mean, that's not what debouncing a button typically is.
Well, debouncing is usually hardware.
It's done in software a lot.
That's true too. Or drivers. Drivers
Yeah.
are...
Well, it's effectively, yeah, you're getting the on key press, but your keyboard's good enough that it doesn't fire 10 on key presses. It must be debounced in your keyboard.
Yeah, your keyboard debounces button
Okay.
presses.
Okay.
All right, so there are also music presets.
I have written 0 games on desktop and interacted with buttons
Nice.
exclusively on tablet.
Even with the original IBM PC, there was a custom microcontroller that was talking to the keyboard.
Okay, it got really annoying really fast to have the... Oh, bye everybody.
You just lost. You just lost video.
Maybe a little bit. Should come back.
It gets really annoying really fast to have music like blaring at full full volume. So that one I did add a volume where when you start it, you can choose your volume.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cool.
So like this is at 1/10 volume, and you can tell like it's still loud enough.
Oh no, that means it's way loud.
It was so freaking loud.
This is good music.
Thank you. I
Classy. I like it.
actually found a guy who makes free to use music, and I bought a commercial license, and he said I could use it for this purpose and ship it with the engine.
That's awesome.
The only thing that other people do is if you use the music, and that's the only asset that this applies to in the engine. If you use the music, you need to attribute it. That's it. You just need to say, hey, the music is from this guy. And all the info is in the README and stuff. So, and if you're just, yeah, anyway, that's only if you ship this somewhere, or, put it up somewhere.
For some commercial reason, I assume.
He just wants attribution because like that's what he does, and every once in a while people like me come and actually license stuff. So, yeah. What's the question?
Any car tire squealing noises?
No, I don't have an explosion or a crash sound either.
Wow.
I really need to get that in there.
Let me see that can. Let's
Just
make one.
thinking that
Hey, if you all want, if anybody wants to contribute sounds,
Yeah.
like you'll actually contribute it under the license of the
Recorded
engine,
by
I will
phone.
accept any sound you want to give me that is appropriate. I'm not doing any whoopee cushion sound.
What format do you take them in? Is it just
I would prefer something raw-ish, like a wave, and then I'll encode it to OGG, or whatever. So yeah, okay. What else? So that was just playing music. We did music and sound effects. Took way longer than I thought, but that's okay. We're pretty much through all the basics. The actors have layers as well. That just controls which one's rendered on top of other ones. It's just a float between 0 and 999. We did
Yeah, the
keyboard.
icon you put on there to run over to show the layers.
Well, there's actually an engine example called layers. You can go cargo, run, release, example, layers. Oh, layer in Rusty engine, and you can see oh, cool. I can see myself.
Well,
I have a monitor, a studio monitor.
it's, the OBS or the Canon driver gave up the ghost for the time being.
Oh, I see. You're using this as the camera.
Yeah, because
Hello from the side.
because either OBS or EOS decided that it was tired of giving frames
Aw.
from this.
So
So
are the
Camera got
are
hot.
the Z heights integers or floating point?
Are
The
the
Z height is an integer or floating point?
floating.
Okay.
32-bit. All just about everything is a 32-bit float, which is because most game engines are using
So
32-bit.
what's the maximum Z then? 1 or
999.
max?
999.
999.
999. All right, let's see. I think I've pretty much demoed it, so why don't I walk through one of the scenarios too? This would be phase 2 of tonight. Okay, so there are 3 end-to-end scenarios. Let me show you the 3, and then you can tell me which one you want me to walk through. So I will go from like least finished to most finished. So car shoot is probably like the most. Okay, I should really like do all that stuff. Car shoot is probably the most rudimentary one. Okay, so you have this gun represented by this little rectangle here. You have cars going across. This is supposed to be like a carnival game. You just want to like shoot things that are going across. And
You've been practicing.
ah, no, missed it.
Where's the score?
And that's it. Yeah, no score, no win condition, no lose condition. It does rate limit you to 3 of these on the screen at a time. And that's about the only features it has. So that's car shoot. Then there is Extreme Driver's Ed, which is my newest one, but is very unfinished as well. It's a little bit more advanced, but not as finished. That's where we just stole the car movement stuff from. So you need to go collect all the little shinies, the little circles. So
driver's head. That's awesome.
We're like, okay. And of course, you know, if you, oh crap, you know, you're dead.
A red
It's
ball.
extreme. So what I want to do is I want to add an explosion sound. I want to add an explosion sprite, and like if you touch something, it's gonna be like, boom.
Wait, you gotta turn that on again. Can you parallel park that thing?
Oh, I wish. It doesn't have backing up yet.
Oh, there's no backup. Cause I see that
No.
spot right there with that shiny.
That's what it's
is, and
for.
I'm like, oh man.
It's for parallel parking, but
It rotates without forward motion.
yeah,
Oh.
it's literally just that like 20 lines that I copied and pasted in. Like I said, this is very unfinished, but oh, see this back corner, the collision rectangles hit.
That is
So-
awesome.
So do you have the collision mapped to, the image is cropped? So
I've
there's no
actually
transparency.
defined custom colliders for each of them.
Okay, that's
You can do
awesome.
convex colliders, convex polygon colliders, and I've defined a custom one for every sprite. But something's a little off because it's not quite as tight. I mean, I put it right on the edges of the sprites, and obviously sometimes, like, oh, actually, I don't know if you go in and look, like it's these dark green
One pixel
pixels and these dark yellows are like really freaking close. So.
So is it like a thing where it detects the collision before it does the update, and so you don't see it actually clipping into it? Or?
Well, it's still
I do it in that same game logic function, and I set one of my state variables saying like you've crashed, and then I just short circuit my game logic so you can't do anything anymore.
So every single obstacle is a separate sprite or actor.
Yeah.
And then you have to define it individually.
I don't have a level saving and loading yet, so.
Oh wow! Holy smokes!
But
That is awesome.
because that would be absolutely insane to type out and figure out, I made this level creator example.
Ooh, auto-generated? That's cool.
And right now all it does is code gen, but eventually I'll get it so it uses some save file format. I want to hook into bevies, and it was complicated, so I didn't get there yet. But anyway, all the instructions are spit out over here. So
Work to see game engines in C++.
Unreal Engine.
So how would you compare that experience to working with Bevy and the rest of
Bevy is not even close to the functionality of a commercial game engine. There's no editor
So it's less
period.
featured. Is there something easier about working?
Less featured. Oh, it's 100% Rust. So I'll tell you what, I don't ever hit in Bevy that I hit in Unreal and even Unity. Segfault.
That's the worst.
All the freaking time. If anyone's ever used Unreal Engine, and I used Unreal Engine real heavy for almost 2 years, it was just like, I'm just, doing stuff in my game, boom, segfault. What the crap?
Oh.
You're just like, good luck debugging that.
Exactly.
And if just go to Unreal Engine's release notes. They have a release about once a quarter, and no joke, it takes me like 2 hours to read through the release notes, and half of your changes are
Fixed segfault.
fixed crash in. And if you go and look in the code, because they'll like either link to the bugs or based on the description, you can go find it in GitHub or the other bug tracker. Like when I did that and I started just going through them, looking, it was null pointer dereference, null pointer dereference, null pointer dereference, null pointer dereference, null pointer. It's just like, oh my gosh. Because everything in Unreal Engine is
You
just,
talk to game developers though, and they say that they never have that problem.
yeah, whatever. Like, it was so frustrating. I even fixed some
The shoot the junior program
that I
doesn't make
actually
sense.
did find. Anyway, this thing is just
They
like,
assign them to work on Unity. Or,
This is a game. This is cool. Level making.
and then you hit a key, and in your thing it like spits out all the code. For like, this is how you would create exactly what you have right now.
Oh, then you
Are you
copy
doing
and
a bunch
paste
of
that?
format
Is that what you
streams or
do?
something?
And you copy and paste
God,
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
I
It's
love
totally poor man's, but hey, this is an educational toy,
No,
so
that's perfect.
don't judge me.
Why not?
Very
cool.
Yeah, push a key and
I'm
send it
so
right to your
impressed. This is
clipboard.
awesome.
What's that?
Send it straight to your clipboard.
Oh, now you're, hey, contribute the feature. We can totally do it.
That's a PR right there. We got none tonight.
The difficult thing is making it work in Mac, Linux, and Windows.
Right.
so that all of my students can have the same experience.
Sadly,
What
my
keeps-
old broken MacBook did not work.
Oh.
Debbie says, you don't have the GPU.
Okay, third
what
one.
keeps you from doing this in JSON? It seems like that would have been trivial.
Then I would have to write it, or I would have to parse it in JSON.
Is that, Saturday, import magic?
Sure, I could make it work.
Define all the structures. And,
But then I have to
and
make
then-
it work.
Then you have to interpret the structure to.
It's
run
not
the same
complex.
place.
It's
This took a loop about this big with like 4 different print lines, and it's just hard coded which attributes it spits out,
That is awesome.
and it just prints them out and you copy and paste it. It's like
You could
it works.
definitely do that.
Derive actor preset Saturday.
Yeah, well, contribute the patch. I will happily take it. I also didn't want to re-implement whatever Bevy had, and I didn't have time to go figure out what Bevy had. I don't know if they have it already. I didn't search for it. That's the problem.
Well, I'm excited for when we can have games that run fast and work well and are cross-platform due to Betty or something.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's the last scenario option: road race. Okay, so, oh my gosh, dang it! I lost one of my health already. Usually this is like super simple, but it is completely random. So,
Oh, those aren't power-ups. I was like, why are you
no.
not getting the
These are
power-ups?
obstacles, and once your health goes down to 0, you're dead. So that's the game, is don't hit the obstacles.
Oh, and then you can make a reverse of this where it's Guitar Hero and you try to hit all the obstacles.
Oh, you totally
And then
hit
it plays the music while you sing.
Ooh. Listen, did you hear that? Bonk. I lost a health. Watch my health.
Oh.
Anyway, so that's the third scenario. So which one should we run through? This one actually had a
That's what had a
loss
closing
condition.
Scene. Yeah.
No win condition, but there's a loss condition. So, yeah. Okay, so which one should we walk through?
That is awesome.
Or would you rather go straight to project?
Wait, repeat the question?
Which one should we walk through? Or
Walk through the code of it.
yeah. So for the second phase of tonight, I was going to walk through one of these 3 scenarios for you and just like explain line by line what the
Yeah.
heck's going on. I think we should do it. Which one? Votes? Any votes?
Enumerate the scenarios that are our choices.
There are the
I like the.
This
I like
is
the
called
car going across with the gun.
road race. There is car shoot,
That one. That's my vote.
Or parachute.
and there is extreme driver's ed.
I vote either Extreme Driver's Ed or
I really wanted to explain every actor.
No, we'll skip the whole active side.
I just want to see collision detection stuff.
Oh, they've all got,
Go pretty
gotta have
fast.
collision detection.
Oh yeah, I didn't show you collision handling today.
Well, I guess
All 3 of these have collision
I guess I
detection.
do. Car shoot, sure. I'll throw my lot in with car shoot.
Collision detection in.
Car shoot?
It does.
Okay, where's I need to plug in because
I just want to see the car generation.
Yeah, good luck. Sorry, you thought that you could plug in tonight? You thought that there'd be power available in the meeting room?
All right, longer cord it is.
There's a floor there.
Yeah,
There's,
I've got one right here.
A little power strip under here.
Under the table, there's
Cool.
one right here.
I'm gonna steal that from you because our presenter's more important than you are.
Okay, can someone plug me in?
Oh, he's gonna plug it in for you.
Oh, thank you.
There's still room.
I thought I was being cut loose.
I was gonna cut you
Just
loose,
give it a
but-
solid shove. I think those things have those
It's got a
protectors.
child
Yeah.
protection. I can't figure out how to do
For
it.
all the children that are in here.
I think you push on
It is
the
very
semi
In the office
circles,
building.
the,
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
it,
requires
that
some
thing, yeah, I
under-
think you do
You don't
that.
have to try too hard. I'm in charge the whole time. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know how,
Could you plug me in while you're down
oh, okay, so, well, we can go back to this, except that I already pulled it out.
Could you plug me in?
If you plug it,
Thank you.
If you plug it back in there. Oh, he's got it?
Yay!
okay, never mind.
Power.
That buggy's actually quite cool.
All right, now we can actually walk through it. We're doing car
Unfortunately, in there,
shoot.
you gotta slide them out.
Slide it out, okay.
Probably one at a time, you gotta slide it all the way before it opens up.
All right, so let's go over the functionality again, what it looks like. You got the cars going across the top. You got the cars left on the bottom right, which is a text thing. You got this thing following your mouse. When you click, you're shooting marbles, and the marbles are colliding with things, right? And you're playing the sound and the music. right? So there's all of our elements. So let's go this, presentation mode. I'll just walk through it.
And
All right.
And Debbie is pure Rust as well?
Bevy's pure Rust. And if once it's using Naga, I should say once WGPU is using Naga, then the whole stack is pure Rust, all the way up to the boundary of your operating system. Because obviously the operating system is separate. So it's pretty cool.
So far.
So far. All right. So here's our setup. We got our same new, we got all our imports. We make a racing barrier red here. That's the gun barrel. So we rotate it up. Oh, I also have a few constants, up, down, left, right, for directions. And I also have north, south, east, west, and northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. So if you want any of those cardinal directions, you can just use one of those built-in constants. I set the scale. I shrink the little car barrier so it looks more like a gun barrel. I put it down a little bit off the bottom of the screen, and I set it to layer 10 so that it will be on top of the marble. So that's that setup. I set the car shooter as the window title. So that's all that does. I start the music. That's that same classy 8-bit music. There are 3 songs. I've only played classy 8-bit so far tonight. This is an interesting one. So in game state, which I never did go over, there are a bunch of just vectors of different types and hash maps of different types. The hash maps all take strings as the key, but then they have different types as the values. And they're all just sitting there empty for you to put stuff in to carry between states. So here I'm saying, okay, I'm just going to go to the built-in string vector, and I'll just push on 3 strings that are marble 0, 1, and 2. And I'm just using this as a sort of stack where as I instantiate a marble actor, I'll pop off this string, use it as the label for the actor, and then when it hits something, I'll destroy the actor and put the label back into this vector. So it's just sort of a way of enforcing that I've only got 3
Like
marbles
availability.
at a time. Mm-hmm. You can only have 3 marbles on the screen at a time. You can't just like jam it and have a bajillion marbles because then there's like no game, right?
Yep.
And then I did a really similar thing with cars, left in the level, only this time I just stuck in a bunch of numbers into a number vector, just 0 through 24. And that's just arbitrary, just hard-coded how many cars there are. Right? You could pick a random number, or you could have it be never-ending instead of using the scheme or whatever, but that's just the design I chose. And then I added a text actor. That's our cars left thing. Since I hard-coded how many it was, I started it with how many it was. And then this is the label to retrieve that text actor so that I can change it later once I have less cars. And I just set it down to the bottom right-ish in the screen, so positive X and then down Y. And then I start my game logic. And so we got a couple constants. One is the marble speed, that's how fast you shoot, how fast the actual marble bullets go. The other one is the car speed, that's how fast they go across the screen. Both of those are in pixels per second. Then we have our actual game logic, so everything else is in the game logic. So the first thing I do is I handle the marble gun movement. When you use events, I didn't actually go over the event system. Every time you click a button, there's an event, or press a button on the keyboard, click a button on the mouse, do a mouse wheel scroll, move stuff around. It'll gather up all the events that happen for that frame, and then you can sort of go get them in a vector.
Oh, so you have to actually parse through all of them.
Well, you don't have to. It depends on what you're doing. You might want to. So this one actually does, because I wrote this scenario before I added the state handling. So now for most movement, you want to use the state where it says what button is pressed this frame.
Yeah, as you said, does
Rather
it get
than-
rid of them after every frame, or like? Or are you just
Yeah,
looking
it
at them
flushes.
as It does flush every time.
The state and events are flushed and rebuilt every frame. So like if you don't handle an event, or if you don't look at the state
just
during a
gone.
frame, it's just gone. Like you'll never get back to it. So this is actually looking at the mouse location events. And I'm just going through all of them and then setting the X position each time. So if there was more than one mouse location event during a frame, which there can be, then it would just get the last one. I'll probably update this to use the state because that is the exact same thing as the mouse location state. It's the very last mouse location event in a frame. But that's what I do, is I go through the events. And then here we've got similar for mouse buttons. Rather than looking at the state, I'm just going through all the events. Here I use a matches macro. Should you stop with it super quick? Use my keyboard cursor instead. Uses the matches macro to say, hey, does the event state, is it element state pressed? If so, continue. If it's not pressed, I'm sorry. I don't care about release events. I'm only triggering on presses. And then over here, it's like, okay, you clicked some mouse button. I really don't care what mouse button it is. Any mouse button will do, and I'll shoot a marble, as long as it's a press event, not a release event. And then, and here, once again, I would change this to use the mouse state and look for just pressed on a specific button or set of buttons. Then create the marble. So here's that what I talked about earlier. I go get that string vector. I pop off one of the IDs. I don't care which ID it is, so I just pop at the end and get that label. If it's not there, then this if let will be false, and we'll skip this whole logic. There's no marble to do, so I won't shoot a marble. If there is a label there, then okay. Then I go in and I get my player. Now, why didn't I just do this player once at the top of logic and use them over and over again? It was that whole ownership thing. So you'll see this a lot. If you use Rusty Engine, you'll have to move these. Okay, I'll just need to get it down inside the scope I need it, so that at the end of that scope, it'll let go of my mutable reference so that something else can use it later. Use my game state somewhere else later. I specifically get the player's translation X value only, because the Y stays there. The Y of the gun barrel just stays at the bottom. But the X is going to move wherever the mouse is. Then we create an actor with that label. We set it to be just right under the end of the barrel of the gun, and we set it to whatever the X value is of the gun, so it's lined up with it. We set its layer so it's underneath the gun. We turn collision on. Oh, that's important. Collision only happens between actors that have collision turned on. So you just have to go collision true on everything that you want to interact. And there's only one layer. Either everything interacts or it doesn't interact. So it's a simple game engine.
So you have got like little ghosts that just floats over everything?
Yeah, you could absolutely just like have no collision events trigger. Or even when the collisions do trigger, it's up to you to go look at them and do something because of them. So there's no physics in this engine yet. And then I play a sound effect for the. It's called impact too.
Physics in the Debbie engine, though.
Nope.
No.
Nope. There is Rapier, which is made by the same people who made N algebra, and that's specifically a game engine physics engine. And there is a Bevy Rapier plugin that you can use to get physics in Bevy. But Bevy itself does not. Most game engine, I mean, even Unreal Engine doesn't write its own physics. They use PhysX. Right?
Clever.
Yeah, clever. It's like, whoa, good job, NVIDIA, with your naming. PhysX. There's other ones. There's Havoc, I think. And what else? Is Havoc the open source one?
Godot has its own physics.
Did they write their own?
So,
Wow.
I don't think
Go
it's.
them.
I don't think it's done, but it's.
Yeah, that's the problem with physics engines. They're never done.
Final for the 4.0, right?
Yeah.
So how big is Rusty Engine? And how many lines of code roughly? How big is this project now?
I don't know. Should we go look? We can go take a
The LOC on
break and look if you want. Let's see. Presentation mode off.
use the LOC.
What is the Rust LOC? I like that one.
That's what's
Just gotta remember its name.
LOC.
Is it? Is that the Rust one?
That's the one you type.
Okay.
Google it.
Let's make this guy bigger.
It worked.
So it looks like I've got 4,000 lines minus 260. So, comments blank. Okay, so there's your code.
Cool, okay. And how big is Bevy?
It's big. Let's go look. I've got it up here. Bevy.
Yeah, it took a good chunk of time to compile it all.
So I've got the 0.5 tag checked out for Bevy.
Not as big as I thought, actually.
I mean, Unreal Engine is, when I last looked, it was over 2 million lines, and that was years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, 55. That's not bad.
Yeah.
That doesn't include all the plugins.
Doesn't
you need.
include all the dependencies and plugins and things that you can use. But yeah.
Yeah, stuff tends to be fairly modular, so a lot of game engines are depending on other foundational crates, I think.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the nice things of getting into the Rust game engine ecosystem is there's all these modular pieces that, you know, I can go contribute to or use or whatever. Like I contributed to GIL-RS, the gamepad input library for Rust. Like it didn't support, what was it, the D-pad. It didn't support the D-pad on Mac OS. It supported on the other stuff. And I used Mac OS and I was like, I want to use the D-pad. And so I went and contributed the D-pad support and boom, all of a sudden Bevy had D-pad support and, you know, and stuff.
So you contributed to Bevy. You wrote it.
Oh yeah, I've contributed a whole bunch to Bevy as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I mean, a whole bunch. Less than a dozen pull requests, probably. But,
That's cool.
let's see. Actually, it's probably more than a dozen. Anyway, what are we looking at now? Back to going through the scenario. Terminal down, presentation mode. Okay, so we're 2/3 of the way through this. So this just moves marbles. So all of the marbles have a label that starts with marble. And so I just iterate through all of the actors who have labels that start with marble, and I move them. Super easy. Here I've got cleanup actors that have gone off the screen. There's only marbles that move up and cars that move right that need to be cleaned up.
That's when you lose your marbles.
Yeah, pretty much. So all I did is I just picked a Y value and I said, okay, well when you go past that, I'm going to clean you up. And I picked an X value and said, when you go past that, I'm going to clean you up. And if they do that, then I stick the labels in a vector because we had the whole, I'm trying to borrow this mutably and then I want to also change it, but I can't change this other thing because anyway. So this is another pattern you'll run into a lot with Rusty Engine is, I have to make another vector, gather stuff up into the vector, and then loop again to use game state again without it complaining about ownership. All right, this is the whole reason that someone wrote something like Bevy with an ECS. So you don't run into this kind of crap. But then, of course, you have to learn all of the game engine concepts. And it's a lot more complicated for a newbie Rust person. So here we're giving up the actual game design ergonomics in favor of I can freaking learn Rust using this thing. All right, here's the same thing for cars. Same thing, it just looks for labels that start, actors with labels that start with the car, moves them across the screen.
So you're using this simple game engine to teach Rust. So you need to understand the borrow checker.
Mhm.
You have to understand lifetimes.
No?
Okay.
Nope.
Is there any concurrency?
Did you see me define any lifetimes
Is
here?
there any concurrency that comes into this? So this is basically a borrow checker. It teaches you about the borrow checker and the basic syntax.
Well, I mean, you're going to use vectors, you're going to use hash maps, you're going to use addition and subtraction and loops and flow control and, right? All that kind of stuff. Oh, the other thing we didn't go over was timers. There are timers because games need timers for things. And so that controls spawning the car. I actually have a timer, and when the timer goes off, I spawn a car, and then I recreate the timer at a new random value. So one of the things that this example uses is randomness, which is just using the rand crate. And
Wait, where was the timer at? Were the timers in main or was it game?
so the timer is right here.
No, where, what is it contained in?
It's contained in the game state's timer map. So that's a hash map.
What I mean is, lexically, what am I looking at right now? What function am I looking at?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're looking at we're about 2/3 of the way down the game logic function.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do here is we're going to get the timer map, which is a hash map of timers. We're going to look for the one with the key spawn timer. If it's not there, we're going to create it. So this is actually another option. Instead of like doing your initialization up in main, you can choose to do it down in your game logic with something like this, where you just say, well, if it's not there, I'll assume it was never, I'm starting and I will create it right here. That will spread your game initialization logic all throughout your game logic, but you can do it. In this case, I only had one timer, so I thought it was a good example. You need to tick your timer for it to actually count down. You use the game state's delta for that. It's the same as delta F32, only it's a duration instead of an F32. And that's what the timers need, is durations. Bevy has the same thing. Some things are durations, some things are F32s when it comes to time. Some things are F64s, actually.
During the time you've been teaching Rust, have you been able to perceive an uptick in demand for or interest in Rust?
Tons. Yeah, I've been teaching Rust since 2017. In 2017, there were no Rust jobs. And very few
There's a
people
bunch
asking
now.
about it. There's lots of Rust
I've
jobs now.
seen several.
There are.
Yeah, we're starting to use it for odds and ends, things that need to be bulletproof, like
Perform.
no, well, like health check sidecars to our applications, right? Where you don't want to worry about it, you don't want to think about it. It just
Right.
needs to work and not have overhead. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're starting little and then we're
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
That's cool. Yeah, in fact, the biggest milestone I've seen is this year, they created the Rust Foundation.
Yeah.
Right, that's the governing board of Rust. And the big thing about that is it separated Rust from Mozilla, made it its own. It's governed now by a foundation, not by Mozilla. And it got all the sponsors to buy in. So Microsoft, Amazon, the AWS branch, Huawei, however you call it. Thank you. I never knew how to pronounce that thing. Huawei? And I'm missing some big ones. But they got all these big sponsors for the foundation itself, and then those same big players are hiring all sorts of core contributors to Rust. So like Nell Shamrell Harrington works for GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft, and Ryan Levick is employed by Microsoft directly, and Nico Matsakis is employed at AWS, I believe. Don't quote me on that, I could be mixing things up, but
So all the people got
stuff
laid
like
off
that.
out all the places they went in.
Yeah, the people who got laid off from Mozilla because Mozilla made whatever crazy decision they did.
They ran out of money.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, let's move on. Here we just get a random time for our next timer, and we spawn a car. So this all is just going through. That's popping stuff off our. Hey, we've got cars left vector. Once that empties out, we won't have any cars left, so this will never be true, and no cars will spawn. And it just sort of, it updates our text actor here, right? With cars left, however many. And, I go through and pick a bunch of my actor presets, and then I use random's choose extension, iterator extension, to choose a random preset.
if you scroll down a little bit.
Okay. And then I just set their initial, they need to be off the left side, some random Y value. Yes, they got to collide because otherwise I can't tell if I hit them. The end, almost. Just collision handling. And that's it. Here's the end of the file. So all we do here is collision handling. So collisions are events. So they've got an events vector. Use drain. That's one of the things I go over in my intermediate course is the drain method. I just drain those out, and events have states and pairs. So is it the start of a collision or the end of a collision? If it's the end of a collision, I don't care because I'm only being triggered by the start of a collision. So I just skip end of collisions. And then I look at the pair. So a pair is a tuple of labels. So all actors have labels. So the way this works is it just tells you the labels of the actors that collided, and then you can go and get the actors and look at them if you want to know more about them. So I just say, okay, well, if it doesn't have one that starts with marble, then I don't care, because in this game, if the marble's not overlapping with something, then who cares? So but the only other thing that could possibly overlap is a marble and a car. So if you don't have a marble overlapping with something, the only other things that could spawn on top of each other are cars. And I actually don't want that because it looks sort of funny when you got two cars like overlapping each other. So in that case, I actually just kill the car. It's like, okay, well. And then, yeah, I just remove the things that collided, because at this point I know that one of them is a marble. Marbles can't overlap with marbles, so that means I remove them both, and then I look at which one is a marble. Why is that? Oh, because I want to find the marble label. So it could be the zeroth. The pair is a tuple, so it could be the 0th element or the 1th element in the tuple. I figure out whichever one it is and push that one back onto the vector. That just keeps it unique. Because if I got to regenerate them, I'd have to deal with generating colliding IDs, and I don't want to. So just grabbed it, pushed it back on, and I play the whole confirmation one is the collision sound. It's like blink. The end.
That's very cool.
Okay, and now it's like third phase is like whatever you want to do. Do you guys want to do some projects? Do you want me to help you make something? Or if that's boring, we can just, do Rust user group chat. I don't care.
Sadly, I couldn't get it to work.
You couldn't get it to work?
Yeah.
Like at all?
No, not on Ubuntu for some reason.
Oh, no. You followed the Linux dependencies set up?
Maybe I missed.
Do you have your Vulkan libraries installed?
That could be it.
Okay,
I was getting Vulkan errors.
go to that Linux dependencies page. It's actually Bevy's instructions. Bevy depends on WGPU, which depends on Vulkan on Linux and Windows.
I had it so that it was successfully compiling. I was getting a runtime error with that. Does that make sense? As
What was the runtime error?
DRI3 is not supported.
DRI, direct rendering.
Yeah.
That's something to do with are you using it works better with proprietary drivers?
It's in a VM.
Oh, VMs don't have Vulkan drivers. Last time I checked, neither VMware nor Parallels nor VirtualBox had any Vulkan driver support for any operating systems.
Is also in that list. So
Yep.
Yeah, okay. That might be it.
Can you do it on the host?
I can. I just do all of my development in a VM and have it.
I get it. Yeah. Since they're using like the newest stuff that was available about a year and a half ago in Rust, and the newest stuff had started with Vulkan and gone down. They're actually working on adding OpenGL support to, I think it's WGPU.
Yeah, it does seem that the error originated from somewhere in WGPU.
Yeah.
And the stack trace, yeah.
If they update to a version of WGPU that's got OpenGPL support, it might start working in VMs. But until then, you got to have bare metal. Or VirtualBox and VMware and KVM and everyone could write Vulkan drivers.
That would be nice.
That would work.
KVM open source?
VFIO or something like that.
So you can write the drivers.
Maybe
It's all open source.
Install one of those external GPUs over Thunderbolt.
So we've got 20 minutes, and we need to be out of here.
Okay. Daryl, did you have a question?
I had a question about what Rust 2021 means. Is that, because I wasn't doing Rust before 2018.
Oh, okay.
I started right after 2018 came out.
I have an answer for that.
So what does the new version mean? Is that warning that breaking changes will happen at that point?
Yes. Whoa. Well, let's not use.
That looks weird.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. There we go.
They're possible to make at edition boundaries, but
Close enough.
There's guarantees about them still being link compatible between versions.
Okay, so this is addition guide that is literally created to answer your questions about what additions are, what changes are in each one, and so that's where you want to get. But the TLDR is we can make breaking changes when the addition changes.
Yeah, syntax breaking.
Syntax breaking
But
changes.
also right when the addition changes, not halfway through the addition, right? It has to be backwards compatible to
Right.
the first thing.
Right.
And are there things they already know they want to break?
Yeah, that's the whole point of the addition,
Okay,
is
so
to
what's the
finally
main
stabilize it.
impetus for? I mean, they said they wanted to do one every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the major features that are driving them to want to break?
For 2021,
Yeah.
that's right here. So there's basically these 8 things. It comes down to not much. 2021 is a tiny change as far as an addition change goes. The 2015 to 2018 was a huge change. But they added these traits to the prelude, the standard prelude. Right? The standard prelude is automatically in scope when you just use cargo normally without any extra flags. So they added those 3 traits. Technically, that could break somebody who wrote their own trait named the same as the standard library trait that wouldn't have been in scope by default.
Right.
Not
Makes
a
sense.
huge problem for most
Chances
people.
are slim, but
I
it
thought the
makes
Rust
sense.
compiler, if you brought another trait into scope, it would always defer to something you defined.
No. If you bring 2, if there's 2 possible methods that from 2 different traits that are in scope, you'll get a compiler error saying that it's an ambiguous method call. And there's actually syntax to. There's the angle bracket syntax. Where is it? They give you an example right there. That's how you can disambiguate.
Oh, so you named something else.
Is you just say, you put it in angle brackets and add an as what trait you're talking about.
Alias it with something else for that.
That's the fix. But technically your code is broken until you do that.
Yep.
If you wrote one of your own traits named that, or that.
It's so small though.
Very tiny.
Huh.
So stability is a good thing.
Cargo has a few improvements.
The nice thing too is if you, in your cargo.com, well, if you say a previous edition, it'll still compile,
Mhm.
even with the new
Yeah.
edition.
The current commitment is to support the old syntaxes forever.
Forever is a long time.
Forever is a long time. It has me a little bit skeptical. But
Oh, Java's managed to maintain some pretty archaic stuff for a very long time.
it's possible.
Which is why it's universally loved.
It's not going that far. I'm just saying. Man, well,
A long time is what, 30 years?
Shots
old in Java?
for better or worse.
Java's not 30 years old?
No, not yet. Into iterator for arrays. Yeah, some other things. Disjoint captures and
Rust is 10 years
closures.
old.
Making sure panic is
Ancient.
consistent. Reserving some
Hours.
syntax that nobody uses. Some warnings become errors. Oh, the big one, if you're using bare trait objects, you have to put dyn in front of them in Rust 2021, where it was optional in Rust 2018. And yeah, or patterns. And this is only if you're deep into writing macros, there's a change.
Oh, breaking change?
A potentially breaking change if you use something in a very specific way.
I think they'll just add things to editions if there isn't a breaking change, right?
Between editions, every version, every release, every 6 weeks, they can add things as long as it doesn't break
Yeah.
backwards compatibility.
I just saw a really cool syntax for let else that just got included into Rust.
Yeah, like the question mark operator, that wasn't on an edition. That was added just in a regular version.
Yeah, 'cause it's just an addition. That's cool.
Mhm.
Or just a.
It was a new operator. It
Yeah.
didn't break anything.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they'll add stuff and they'll fix stuff and they'll make stuff faster every release, but they'll only break backwards compatibility on edition boundaries. Although the binary compatibility is supposed to be interoperable between all editions. So you could have a Rust 2021 edition syntax binary use a Rust 2015 syntax library. Works just fine.
That's probably LLVM that's doing that.
Because they're
ultimately, right?
yeah, because all the syntax is on the front end is being translated into the intermediate representation and fed to LLVM. Yeah.
And, you know, it limits the sort of changes they can make to code generation and whatnot, because it all has to be compatible at the linker level.
Right.
And it's not even LLVM that does the linking
Okay.
necessarily. You can use LLVM or any of the other platform linkers.
Cool. Anything else Rusty Engine related you want to talk about? If not, we'll just chat for the last 15 minutes.
All right. Well, let's give you a round of applause. Thank you very
Oh,
much,
thank
Andy.
I like the Cub Scout round of applause. That was very appropriate.
Watching the audio levels clip like mad.
Have a go song, or it's all French.
Ooh.
All right. Oh, so a couple of items of business. One, if you did not already chip in $5, it would be great if you would do that. You can just hand it directly to
Just
Daryl
pay him, and
tonight.
I will have to pay for food for the next 2 months.
I would, okay.
I don't have Venmo or anything set up. If you want to pay me cash, okay.
Yeah, so if you want to Venmo, cool AJ86, same thing, PayPal. And I'll work it out whichever way.
I'm a cash guy, here you
All right. Thank you.
So, I was listening to a podcast about this guy who was trying to
go.
build
Here, I'm getting
some sort of plugin for Kubernetes for Wasm.
We'll
That
have
he was
discuss.
basically talking about Docker being replaced by Wasm.
It's not a replacement so much as, you know, an
Well, maybe-
alternate runtime that you can use for some scenarios.
It's in the same sense that Docker replaces quote unquote a virtual machine.
Make
It
it,
doesn't.
make it obsolete.
But for different use cases it can.
The idea was that with Docker, you can still break out of the container you will and cause problems from a security point of view. And they were claiming that in the Wasm papers that they could, much better sandbox was going on, so it could be much more, the container system would be a lot more reliable.
Yeah, well, your interfaces to the outside of the virtual machine in Wasm is like dependent on what exactly is happening. So like your browser would have a different interface to the things it exposes to the outside world than say the WASI like standard for system interfacing with Wasm.
And they were still hampered by maturity of WASI.
Yeah. Adrian, last 4 digits of your phone.
4427. Also, I'm going to pass this around. If there's something that you would like to learn, or if there's something that you would like to present on, or something that you've recently learned that you could do a 5-minute talk on, just put your name, phone number, and what it is you'd like to learn.
Is that
or,
a hint?
I think it was. Yeah, what
10
it
minutes,
is.
I'll turn everything off.
Yeah, so I'm going to start putting some things back where they belong. But feel free
Is there a
to
trash
continue
can
to
around
chat.
here?
There is a
Oh,
trash
there is
can.
one, okay.
Let me bring the trash can. Yeah.
I was trying to
So,
clean up, but then I was like, I couldn't find it.
key thing is this is our first time here. These people don't know us. We want to leave this place better than we found it, if possible. I don't know that that's possible, so at least as good as we found it.
Good enough.
Clean, but smelling better.
Sounds good.
Is there anyone who knows like how to do macros very well? I've been trying to dig into them, but they are soul crushing.
I don't know about very well, but I know a little bit about them.
Yeah, I'm having a particular issue that I have found impossible to debug.
You're a
If
trash
somebody
can for
wanted
the
to
pizza
take a
box.
look
Anybody else want a piece?
And judge me on it, then maybe. No, I'm good.
All right.
Is that the last of it?
That's it.
I'm going to use this as a transport.
That's effective.
We need 2 hands.
No signal.
Yes, if you want.
One more crate for the road.
Sure.
I forget. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Thanks for putting this on.
Yeah, that was so cool.
The plan to have it here.
Yeah, so hopefully they invite us back.
That would
So,
be nice.
You know, as long as we, And if we can outgrow this room, well, first of all, we can bring in chairs as long as we put them back. So if next time we have more people, we're fun to bring in more chairs. If we outgrow this room, we can also use
You said
the
you
break room.
look at
That's
macros a little
awesome.
bit?
Yeah.
Tell me if this looks at all reasonable to you. I have a bit of code here, right, that I'm trying to test this macro against. So the purpose is to, it's hard to explain it in any short amount of time, but the idea is that you would define a struct, and then this macro would define basically a mapping between the original struct and a new struct, and you would essentially define some validation logic in this macro. But the problem that I'm having is like the recursion that I'm trying to do in these fields. So the fields are of this struct. The fields of this struct.
Oh, here's a break room over here.
That's gonna be really dumb. There might be this visibility thing because I don't match on a visibility. If you look, this is the top level macro match, and this is where you have some field item, multiple of them in this struct that are being referenced. And oh no, okay, it wouldn't be the visibility. That's not the problem because that's not being matched. But it's essentially inside this destination struct that I'm trying to generate code for, right? Because this yep message doesn't exist at all, and I want to create this struct, but I need to match for every field that
Take the extra goodies home.
here to create.
People like the crates.
So
So,
these are fields that are being referenced,
do you want me to
this would be like an
give this to you? And then
Well, how much
I'll
is
give you
it?
another- This is 15, I can give you another, was it 22 bucks or something? 23?
But the issue is that this,
But I'll-
I
I can
can
find
find
the
the
other
seems, I cannot.
for you, or you can
this
just
It was
not.
it was $20 with
match
tax.
and generate
Okay.
code.
Oh, flat 20?
It was $20 plus whatever the tax was.
And I would have thought it
I'll
would
take-
work.
I'll
I tried
take
to
the
tear it
15
down
for
to
now.
something simpler
Okay.
that would work.
Yeah, feel free to not.
Saves me having to go to the ATM to get cash in the
And when
future.
the cargo expand.
I feel the opposite.